All right, today we're diving into one of the most talked about islands on the planet, Taiwan. And in just the next few minutes, you're going to find out why this tiny little island is actually a massive deal for, well, pretty much everyone.
So let me ask you something. What could your smartphone, yeah, the one you might even be watching this on right now, possibly have in common with, get this, 80% of all global trade? The answer, believe it or not, is a single island, Taiwan.
Okay, first off, the tech side. The brains inside your phone, your computer, pretty much all your gadgets, chances are they were made in Taiwan. Why? Because the world's biggest microchip factory is there, churning out a mind-blowing 50% of all the microchips on Earth. Half of them, from one place. And then there's the trade aspect. Take a look at this waterway, the Taiwan Strait. An unbelievable 80% of all the cargo ships in the world sail right through here. It's like a global superhighway for trade. So you've got the world's tech and the world's trade all squeezed into this one tiny critical spot, which of course brings up a very big question: who's in control here? To really get what's happening today, we've got to rewind the clock. Because this whole conflict, it's not just about an island. It's basically a historical standoff between two governments that both claim to be the real China. It all boils down to the Chinese Civil War. For more than 2 decades, you had two sides fighting for control: the communists led by Mao Zedong and the nationalists led by Chiang Kai-shek. Well, spoiler alert, Mao's communists won. They took over the mainland and created what we now know as the People's Republic of China. Chiang Kai-shek and about 2 million of his followers, they were defeated and had to flee across the strait to Taiwan. There they set up the Republic of China. So bam, you've got two Chinas, and both are insisting they're the only legitimate one. And for a while, it was actually the government in Taiwan that most of the world, including the UN, saw as the real China. But then, everything flipped. In 1971, the UN voted to give China's seat to the mainland government instead. Big move. Then, in 1979, the United States followed suit, officially recognizing Beijing. And just like that, Taiwan was left pretty much out in the cold, diplomatically speaking. But here's where the story gets really interesting. As Taiwan was being pushed aside on the world stage, it started building something incredible, a kind of modern-day shield. It launched this amazing economic transformation, going from making simple stuff like toys to becoming an absolute powerhouse in technology. So how on earth did they pull that off? Well, it happened in stages. First, they became the go-to place for cheap stuff. You know, clothes, baseball caps, toys for the West. Then, they stepped up their game assembling electronics for big American and Japanese companies. But they saw the writing on the wall. With mainland China's huge workforce coming online, they knew they couldn't just compete on cheap labor forever. So they made a brilliant pivot. They decided to invest in brains, pouring money into startups with one single-minded mission: to create the most advanced microchips the world had ever seen. And the guy leading this whole charge, a genius named Morris Chang. He was educated in the US, a big-shot executive at Texas Instruments, and Taiwan basically recruited him to come back and lead their tech revolution. We're talking about a figure who's on the same level as a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates. And the company he founded would change everything. It's called TSMC. And TSMC today, it's basically the beating heart of the entire global tech industry. I mean, look at this list: Apple, Nvidia, Qualcomm, AMD, Sony. Seriously, almost every huge tech company you can think of absolutely depends on TSMC to make the chips that power their world-changing products. Now, this massive economic power completely rewrote the rules of the game for Taiwan's place in the world. It became what one very famous general called it: an unsinkable aircraft carrier. A piece of strategic land so important that the world's superpowers just couldn't afford to ignore it. Yeah, that quote, it came from U.S. General Douglas MacArthur. And he saw Taiwan's huge strategic importance way back. For the United States, a friendly, independent Taiwan isn't just nice to have. It's a critical democratic partner right on China's doorstep. It's a key piece of the puzzle for their entire defense strategy in Asia. So let's be super clear about what's at stake here. This goes way beyond military strategy. If Beijing were to take control of Taiwan, it would instantly gain control over the world's most critical supply of microchips. They could basically hold the entire global economy hostage, calling the shots for anyone who needs a computer chip, which, let's be honest, is everybody these days. Which, of course, leads us to the billion-dollar question. If the stakes are so high and Beijing's ambitions are so clear, why hasn't an invasion already happened? Why are we still in this tense standoff? The short answer is that the cost of a war would be absolutely astronomical for everyone. but especially for China. Think about it. Militarily, trying to invade a heavily armed island across 100 miles of water, that's a textbook nightmare scenario with just unimaginable human losses. Economically, you'd see trillions of dollars in trade between China, the US, and Europe just evaporate overnight. It would trigger a global crisis. Strategically, an attack would force the US and its allies to respond, probably by shutting down other key shipping lanes like the Strait of Malacca. And finally, technologically, China would almost certainly get cut off from the very Western tech it still needs to grow. It's a massive, massive gamble.
Okay, so what about a peaceful path? Well, China has put an offer on the table, the same one they gave to Hong Kong. One country, two systems. The basic idea is, hey, Taiwan, you can become part of China, but you get to keep your own government and way of life. The problem? Everyone saw what happened in Hong Kong. We all watched Beijing slowly but surely crush the freedoms it had promised. So now that one country, two systems model, it has zero credibility in Taiwan. Nobody's buying what they're selling.
And that's where we are today, stuck at this global crossroads. Taiwan is right at the heart of this incredibly tense balancing act between global economics and fierce geopolitical rivalry. So the final question really is what happens next? Will China keep playing the long game using political and economic pressure? Or will it one day decide that the terrifying risk of war is a price it's willing to pay? The answer to that question is probably going to define the rest of our century.